Tonight, we have the pleasure of enjoying the Great Woods Symphony Orchestra, led by our own Professor Delvin Case. The orchestra, and I'm sure he'll say a little bit more about it, but it's also another great piece of evidence of Wheaton working together with the town, because it consists of our students, but also it consists of members of the greater Norton community. So I hope you will join me in giving them a big round of applause to welcome them, and I hope you have a great evening and enjoy the concert. Professor Case.
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming on this wonderful evening. As President Hanno said, I'm Del Case. I teach music here, and I conduct the Great Woods Symphony. We are comprised during the school year, as well as on the smaller version tonight, of our faculty, students, talented local high school students who play for free, members of the public who also have the opportunity to play at no charge. Wheaton donates its facilities and energy and effort and support to make this a real college community musical organization. And then we have, during the school year, we give 2 concerts. We have about 70 people in the group, so it's much larger. We do music that's generally much louder. So if you like this, imagine 3 times as loud. It's going to be like that next December. So if you have an instrument that you played in college or high school and you want to dust it off, contact me. I'd love to have you audition. If you have a child, a grandchild, a niece, a nephew, or a neighbor who's a talented musician, again, we accept folks from of all ages, essentially, as long as they can play, and we have a wonderful age range in the group, ranging from 9th graders up to retirees. So we would love to have a 100-person orchestra come this fall. We are going to present a concert this evening of about an hour in length that features a whole bunch of short pieces that really run the gamut of music from around the world. But as it's July and you can't have an outdoor summer concert without patriotic music, we're going to start with America the Beautiful, and I'd like to welcome one of our featured soloists this evening, soprano Jean Danton, to lead us in the song. Jean.
Feel free to sing with me. I know we all know this beautiful song. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. God shed His grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountain majesties above the fruited plain. shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea, from sea to shining, shining sea.
So whenever I'm putting together a concert, I try to think of a theme, and the theme for tonight's concert is the wide variety of music that we bring into the orchestra world, and particularly the folk music from countries around the world. And so I think about that first song. It's not a folk song really, though we all know it. And I think about the idea of and crown thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. The idea of brotherhood, the idea that music is something that really does bring people together, not just literally right here, but on stage behind me, and even links people not just from geographical area to geographical area, but also over time. And we're playing music that goes back 200-300 years, and we're mixing it with music written of just a few years ago. So classical music has always been connected and influenced by folk music or even popular music. Even going back hundreds of years ago, Haydn wrote a lot of his symphonies using folk tunes and pop tunes of the day, and that was back in the 1750s and 1760s. And a lot of, in the old days, if you will, a lot of opera tunes became pop songs, and that's true for the song we're going to do next. Now, Gene, if it's okay, I want to do your next song now, actually. I'll bring Gene back here. We're going to do a very, very famous aria that is a song from an opera by Gluck, a German composer from the 18th century, and it's based upon the famous myth of Orpheus. If you remember Orpheus, he was the guy who was such a talented harp player and composer, as is according to the Greek myths, that he could sort of do anything. He could weave spells of he could make even the gods cry. Well, things are going fine for Orpheus until his wife died, Eurydice. And he sang such a sad song of lament that the gods said, you know what? Why don't you go down and try to convince Pluto from the underworld to send Eurydice back to you. So he goes down to the underworld and he plays this song and he convinces Hades, the Greek god of the underworld, to let her go. He says, you know what? You can take her back, but you all know what happened, right? Just don't, on your way back, you just can't look at her until you get back to the outside to the regular, what do you call it, the overworld, right, the earth. So he's so happy, overjoyed. He walks up the long path, across the river Styx, etc. And then, he didn't trust the guy. So he turned around. He saw her following him, but then she got snatched, dead and gone forever. You got your one chance, Orpheus, more than most people get. So, Gene, you're going to be singing. Maybe you can tell us what's going to be happening in this particular moment from the opera.
So, yes, there was that catch. He couldn't look back, but he did, so she dies. And he is now bemoaning his fate in this beautiful aria, because now she's dead in his arms, and he wants her to come back to life, but he's blown his one and only chance to do that. But this music is so beautiful. I hope you enjoy it. She is gone and gone forever. All my joy at last has flown. Why remain here without her? Why remain on earth alone? Why remain on earth alone? Eurydice, please answer, I beseech thee. I beseech thee. Please answer, I beseech thee. If truth and love, if truth and love can reach thee. She is gone and gone forever. All my joy at last has flown. Why remain here without her? Why remain on earth alone? Why remain on earth alone? Eurydice, Eurydice. She cannot hear me, vain expectation. She cannot hear me. She can't hear me. There's no relief. She is gone and gone forever. All my joy at last has flown. Why remain here without her? Why remain on earth alone? Why remain here without her? Why remain on earth alone? On earth alone? On earth alone? Thank you. Thank you.
We will welcome Jean back later in the evening for a couple of other songs. It'll be wonderful to have her back. So that's an opera tune from an opera about music, an example of how music doesn't just touch people on earth, but actually all the way into the underworld. Look, and as a composer myself, I'd love it if my music could speak to anybody on this earth. It could be, whether it's aliens, God, or even the devil. So we can all dream. Now, this is a piece of European music that was written based upon a Greek a myth, and it's a story about the power of music to speak to all different kinds of people, mortals or gods. And that's an example of how music does transcend individual abilities to just speak and communicate to people through language. Music can do more than just language oftentimes to communicate, as we all know. Now, one of the themes of this concert is that the orchestra tradition is large, and when you see an orchestra in front of you, it doesn't just mean you're going to hear music that, from an opera like we just heard. In fact, for hundreds of years, classical composers have been taking their cue from folk music and even popular music from countries that they've come from or countries that they've come to visit. So the real theme of this concert is not just classical music influenced by folk music per se, but it's really, we're going to start to focus in upon how composers from the United States actually, if you will, sort of came to sort of become influenced by folk music that they found in their country. And as you all know, most of us are immigrants in the United States, so most of the music we're going to be playing tonight is actually by immigrant composers, either first or second generation. Much of the music we're going to be performing was written in the 20th century, so it couldn't have happened if America didn't welcome all these folks from all over the world who brought their own music with them and then studied the classical tradition in the United States and then vastly expanded the scope and the beauty of the Western and the American classical music tradition. So before we start with a lot of the American folk-inspired music, we're going to go to one of sort of the godfather of this, and there's a Hungarian composer named Béla Bartók, and he was one of the best-known composers in the early 20th century. He was Hungarian, and he was one of the first Western composers to really study music of, in his case, Eastern Europe. Eastern European folk music, and he started to put the tunes and the rhythms into this very original sort of a hybrid kind of music. So we're going to play a short piece called Romanian Folk Dances, and it's 3 folk dances arranged for orchestra, and they go by really fast. They're sort of connected, so don't blink. But they're really fun, they're really rhythmic, and they give the orchestra a real challenge because they are so unexpected in their rhythms. So here are 3 of the Romanian folk dances by Bartók. Isn't that fun? You can really hear that Eastern European folk rhythms. Now, we're going to move on to the Americas. We're going to go to a composer named Astor Piazzolla, who was born in Argentina and then came to the United States, to New York at a young age as an immigrant, and studied classical music and heard jazz and blues and gospel and music of Puerto Rico, and he fused it into what was called the Tango Nuevo, a new version of the traditional Argentine tango. And we're going to play a famous tune by his called Libertango. It's an incredible hybrid of jazz and Latin American rhythms, all sort of filtered through his own classical training. And so this is a wonderful piece. It features Aaron Trant on drum set behind us, providing the rhythmic background. And yes, so this is Libertango by Astor Piazzolla. feel like you're in some warm evening in Buenos Aires? Yes. And that featured a solo from our professor of cello, Zarina Erkaeva. So next we're going to move to another an immigrant composer. Her name is Soon-Hee Newbold, and she's quite well known for writing music that's for high school and middle school age orchestras. Now, we're a better orchestra than that. However, I wanted to play one of her pieces because she's a fantastic example of what I'm talking about. So she was born in Korea. She came to the United States as a girl. She studied music classically, and she's written a lot of music that explores lots of different folk idioms. So not just the folk music of Korea, but she's written music that borrows from music of Latin America and Africa. And this is a song that's called Arabian Dream. So she's sort of taking a cue from some of the music and the rhythms and sort of the romance, if you will, of the Middle East. So, and this is a very, by the way, she's also an actress. She's in some films. So, it's not enough just to be a famous and wealthy composer. She's also, a movie star. Not fair. But again, so we have an example of a piece of music from a composer who came 10,000 miles away to study and then writes a piece of music about a land 10,000 miles away from where she was studying. So it's really a global piece of music that goes by in a couple of minutes. It paints 3 scenes. I believe the first one is called Sunrise, the second is called Marketplace, and the third is supposed to evoke soldiers on horseback. So this is Soon-Hee Newbold's Arabian Dreams. Thank you. And this features a solo from Ethan Wood, concertmaster. So, there's obviously a lot of the music we've heard that's influenced by folk music has a lot of rhythms that are particularly suited for dancing, and that's because so much of the great folk music in the world is meant for ritual or for just plain having fun, which includes moving your body and dancing, which is true for people right here in Norton. By the way, if you want to dance, it's okay. That would not be a problem for me. And you might want to dance later on when we do West Side Story in Hamilton, but I won't hold it against you. We are going to do a piece of music composed by an African composer who taught at Washington State University in Washington State, and wrote this piece of music in memory of his mother. It's for string orchestra, but it's also augmented by some extemporized or improvised percussion, as is the tradition in African cultures. And in fact, in traditional African cultures, you never just sit and watch a concert. All music is both physical, that is, there's dance or movement, as well as participatory. So you know what that is. That means I'm going to have you do something. So all I'm going to have you do is clap, okay? And it'll be very clear. You can't get it wrong. As long as you're having fun, you can't have it wrong. But when I turn around and clap, if you clap the rhythm that I'm doing, we can turn this into a 200-person orchestra. It'll be great, okay? I know, you all look very musical out there, so let's do it. thank you for helping us out. And thank you to our percussionists. Thank you, Aaron, Jackson, and Brianna. Wonderful. It's a wonderful, syncopated, fun music, and it can go on, and you're lucky I didn't have you go on and on and on. So we are, let's see, what's next? Yes, okay. So we're going to move, we're staying in America. We just heard music from, again, an African composer who was an immigrant and moved to America to teach. He was an ethnomusicologist, that is, he studied music from other world cultures. And we're going to go to, the next part of the program is going to feature orchestra music that's inspired by music of the American Appalachian regions and the West. This is music that that when you think about the folk music revival of the 50s and 60s, you might think of this stuff. You might think of fiddle tunes or hymns or other folk songs that maybe you learned growing up. And a lot of that stuff comes from the British Isles and Ireland in particular. We're going to move to a song. It's interesting. It's a song called Ashokan Farewell, which is a newly composed song that sounds like it's hundreds of years old. By Jay Unger, who's a great musician and who wrote this for the PBS series The Civil War, the Ken Burns. You'll probably recognize the tune. Anybody watch that? Yeah. You'll recognize this tune, yeah. And so it's amazing. It sounds like a fiddle tune that's been around forever, but it's not. He just wrote it like 25 years ago. And that's what composers do, is you get inspired by something, no matter what it is, and you make it your own. So this is going to feature another solo by Ethan and Brianna Sheldon, our pianist, who's I believe going to be a junior or sophomore, junior at Wheaton, and the rest of the orchestra. So I hope you enjoy Ashokan Farewell. So we are going to move on to probably America's best-known classical composer, or maybe one of the most respected classical composers, Aaron Copland, a name you may or may not know, but you've probably heard his music. In fact, the piece we're about to play is one of his most famous. It's from a ballet called Rodeo, and it's a movement called Hoedown. It was used in the commercials for beef in the 1990s. You'll recognize it from the beef commercial, but he didn't write it for that. But whatever it takes to get modern music popular, it's fine with me. It's a wonderful piece. This orchestra is actually going to do it this fall, but in its full orchestra version with all the percussion and brass, so make sure you come back for that. But this is a slightly smaller version, just for strings and percussion, and it is based upon several cowboy tunes. So Copland was very well known for writing music that evoked the American West, and his music is so powerfully associated with the vast plains of the Midwest and of the scrub brush of New Mexico and Texas through all of his ballets and his other Americana style of music, which is great because remember this is all just made up stuff. Aaron Copland was a children of immigrant Jews from Europe. He studied in Paris in the 1920s and then came back and from his little apartment in Brooklyn wrote all this music that evoked the American West for generations. It's great. I love that. So close your eyes and you can either think of the little apartment in Brooklyn or you can think of the Southwest with the cowboys riding on the plains. Either way, this is Hoedown. Thank you, and that featured Aaron Trent on xylophone. Do you recognize that tune? Yeah, I love it. It's one of the pieces that got me started with doing music. We're actually going to skip the next to another piece by Aaron Copland, which is very nice, but I'd like to move on in the program. And so, remind me what's next? After Red Hood. Yes, well, thank you. So, of course, not everyone who came to America came here willingly. That's a fact. Along with the slaves from Africa came, however, an extraordinarily powerful musical and ritual and religious tradition that birthed countless styles of music, everything from the blues to gospel to hip hop, and has influenced popular music around the world. And really the original, sort of the first kind of African American music that there was, again, that's music created by African slaves in America, were the spirituals. The spirituals is a traditional church music, usually meant to evoke sorrow, but also a quiet sense of dignity, and also, as more and more scholars have discovered, replete with hidden messages and an extraordinary amount of cultural power that really carried a lot of memory memory and power from the old world of Africa through into emancipation, and then birthed gospel music in the early 20th century. So we're going to perform one of the most famous spirituals, Deep River. We're going to invite Gene back for this. This is an arrangement by a composer named Harry T. Burleigh, who was a pupil of the great composer Antonin Dvorak when he visited the United States. Dvorak learned about the spirituals and went back and wrote to Czech Republic, or whatever it was at the time, and I think it was Bohemia, and wrote his most famous piece, his New World Symphony, inspired by the African-American spirituals he learned from his pupil in New York City. So again, an example of the multicultural, worldwide way that music connects all different kinds of people. So we'll bring Gene back for this arrangement of Deep River.
Deep river, my home is over Jordan. Deep river, Lord, I wanna cross over into campground. Deep river, my home is over Jordan. Deep river, Lord, I wanna cross over into campground. Oh, don't you want to go to that gospel feast that promised land where all is peace? Oh, deep river, Lord, I wanna cross over into campground. Thank you. Sure. Okay, this next song, I love this next song, and it's perfect for an evening like tonight. It's one of the most famous songs by George Gershwin and Ira Gershwin, which I'm sure you all know and love. Summertime. It's a beautiful evening to sing it tonight. Summertime by George Gershwin. And living is easy. Fish are jumping, and the cotton is high. Oh, your daddy's rich, and your ma is good looking. So hush, little baby, don't you cry. One of these mornings, you're gonna rise up singing. Then you'll spread your wings and you'll take the sky. But till the morning, there's nothing can harm you. With the daddy and mommy standing by. One of these mornings, you're gonna rise up singing. Then you'll spread your wings and you'll take the sky. But till the morning, there's nothing can harm you. With a daddy and mommy standing by. Thank you. That's wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jean. Thank you, thank you. And of course, Gershwin was writing music that was, inspired by the blues and the spirituals, and he also was writing pop music in New York City with his brother, as well as an opera with the African-American protagonist. So he was really an example of another composer who used folk music from the country where he lived and created something entirely new out of it. Speaking of which, we're going to move on to another famous example from Broadway of folk music inspired popular music, and that's Leonard Bernstein's West Side Story. I'm sure you all know that show, and one of its most famous songs, America. And of course, if you know the lyrics to this, it's all about the differing opinions about how the Puerto Rican community in the Upper West Side was dealing with or thinking about their new situation in New York City versus back home. So this is a nice orchestra version. There's no singing in this one, but it's an orchestra version of the song America from Leonard Bernstein's West Side Story. That's such a great song. It's in the style of a huapango that Leonard Bernstein, and he did so much wonderful music that combined jazz and other kinds of popular music with classical music. Now, a sort of an updated version of West Side Story is the smash hit Hamilton. I'm sure some of you have heard of it. And we're really excited to be able to do a song from that show because it's a great example of, again, a composer who creates a new kind of Broadway music, a new kind of music based upon hip-hop and classical and jazz and gospel. And, of course, it tells the story of, the Revolution. So we are really excited to bring a special soloist for this. This is a Wheaton alumnus who goes by the name of Cliff Notes. If you were his professor, you might have known him as Clifton de Ravine from the class of 2013. But now he's Cliff Notes, and he's a multimedia artist. And we are so thrilled to have him back to be the soloist for My Shot from Hamilton. So, Cliff.
Hope everyone's feeling warm.
There's no light, so you can go down if you want.
Cool.
Ready?
Yeah. And I am not throwing away my shot. Hey yo, I'm not throwing away my shot. Hey yo, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot. Yo, I'ma get a scholarship to Wheaton College. I probably shouldn't brag, but dad got amazing soundness and a lot of polish. I got to be heard of every word. I drop knowledge. I'm a diamond in the rough, a shining piece of coal, trying to reach my goal. My style of speech unimpeachable. Only 19, but my mind is older. These New York City streets get colder. I shoulder every burden, every disadvantage. I've learned to manage. I don't have a gun to brandish. I walk these streets famished. Plan is to spark this right into a flame. We always getting dark, so let me spell out the name. I am the ALEXANDAR. We are are meant to be a colony that lives independently. Meanwhile, Britain keeps putting on us endlessly. The plan is endlessly. And King George run around and runs the spenders free. He ain't never gonna let our descendants free. Yo, don't defend this me. Yo, I'm not gonna live my shot. Yo, I'm not throwing away my shot. Yo, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot. We're gonna rise up. Yo, I'm not throwing away my shot. Yo, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot. Come on. Everybody sing, not throwing away my shot. Yo, I'm not throwing away my shot. Yo, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot. We're gonna rise up. When you living on your knees, we're gonna rise up. Tell your brother that he's gonna rise up. Tell your sister that she's gotta rise up. Rise up. Gonna rise up. When you're living on your knees, gonna rise up. One of these colonies gonna rise up. One of these colonies gonna rise up. Rise up. I'm past patiently waiting, I'm passing every expectation, and every activation is act of creation. I'm living past the way to tomorrow. I'm living past tomorrow. Yo, I am not gonna away my shot. Yo, I'm not throwing away my shot. Yo, I'm young, just my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot. Yo, I'm not throwing away my shot. Yo, I'm not throwing away my shot. Yo, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot. Yo, I'm not throwing away, not throwing away. Yo, I'm not throwing away my shot. Yo, I'm not throwing away, not throwing away. Yo, I'm not throwing away my shot. Rise up. When you're living on your knees, we're gonna rise up. When your brother that he's gonna rise up. Tell your sister that she's gonna rise up. One of these colonies 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 gonna rise up. Rise up. Throwing away my shot. Yo, I'm not throwing away my shot. Yo, I'm just like my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot. Not throwing away my shot. Yo, I'm not just my country. I'm young, scrappy, and hungry, and I'm not throwing away my shot. Time to rise up. When you're living on your knees, gonna rise up. When you're living on your knees, gonna rise up. Rise up. And I'm not throwing away, not throwing away. So I'm not throwing away, not throwing away. Said I'm not throwing away my shot. Said I'm not throwing away, not throwing away. I'm not throwing away my shot.
Thank you, Cliff Notes. If you don't know his music, go check it out on Apple Music and Spotify. We're going to finish up this evening with something that's a kind of music that's it proves that music isn't just powerful on Earth or under the Earth, but also in a galaxy far, far away. And nothing's more American. Nothing brings more people in America together than Hollywood, especially movies with robots and spaceships. So, of course, we're talking about the composer John Williams, who's America's most famous composer and probably the wealthiest. And he's written the music of so many people's childhoods and I should say, continue to be the music of my adulthood as well. I love everything he does. E.T. and Schindler's List and Jurassic Park and Raiders of the Lost Ark and Superman and Star Wars. It's amazing. So we're going to do a little medley of some of his best-known tunes. I believe it starts with Star Wars, then goes to then it goes to Jurassic Park, and then it goes to Indiana Jones, I believe, but don't quote me on that. I think you'll probably recognize all the tunes. So we'll finish up with this wonderful medley of John Williams music that is really out of this world and shows that music can bring all kinds of people together in America and in the stars. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank you to President Hanno for graciously allowing use of this space, and for Janet Russell, who did so much to help make this event happen. Please join us next year if we do it again, and please continue to listen to as much music as you can. Thank you again so much for joining us.